Good afternoon. Here for another exciting Talk of the County podcast. Today, our conversation is going to revolve around service and specifically conversations about serving our veterans in Franklin County, those who have put it all on the line for our freedoms that we enjoy today, and to be able to be in spaces like we are to have these kind of conversations. If it were not for our military servicemen and women, a lot of the freedoms we have would be truly at stake. So I'm here with the people that make it happen for the Franklin County Veteran Service Commission. I'm biased, but I believe we have the best VSC in the state of Ohio, or wherever they may call them in the other counties across America, because I know the Franklin County Board of Commissioners and our administrations values each and every one of our residents, and we value our veterans. So I would like you all to introduce yourselves, talk about a little bit about what brought you here to the Franklin County VSC, and then we'll really delve into other conversations.
Well, those are really nice words, and thank you for that. I appreciate it. This is a great place to work. So I enlisted when I was 17 and shipped off to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. In the Army, came back, served in the Ohio Army National Guard while I was in college. And my service became more important to me in many ways than the jobs I was pursuing. So I just became so much of a soldier and enjoyed that life that eventually I came on active duty after 9/11 and stayed on full time until 2016. And kind of the neat story is what brought me here. My predecessor had mentioned this job was opening, but I was in Iraq. So I actually interviewed for this job from Baghdad over, I think it was Skype, and didn't really know what I was getting into, but I just knew it was helping veterans. And so I accepted the job. They waited on me. I came back, retired, and I've been here a little over 8 years now.
Mr. Bramlish, what do you like most about your job and what you do each day before we get to Matt on that?
Honestly, what I think is the greatest thing, and I've said this a couple of times in other venues, we're here because individuals raised their right hand and swore an oath to protect and serve the great Constitution of the United States, against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And there's not a whole lot of jobs or vocations where you swear an oath, especially one with serious consequences. And so that's who we're helping. Some of these veterans, they served, they made a career out of it. Some of them were in a year or two, but they all took that oath. They all had the intent to do the best they could. And I think that's why I really love doing this.
Matt, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I served 33 years altogether with the Air Force and the Air National Guard. I did 14 years enlisted, 19 as an officer. Got a chance to explore the world, whether it was the Middle East or the Pacific or some embassy work in Europe. Just had a tremendous career. Retired in 2019. Saw a chance to come to the Veteran Service Commission here to serve as the first outreach director for the Franklin County Veteran Service Commission, and then transitioned about 3 years ago into the Assistant Director of Services with a chance to work with some terrific people. So it's a great organization. I think our team is top notch. Like you said, I'm very biased. We have the best Veteran Service Commission team, hands down. It's just an honor to be here and work with our folks every day.
Yeah, you all serve a community with a significant number of veterans. Just down the street, we're blessed to have the National Veterans Memorial and Museum. That is not just a local memorial, but it has a national designation. And I think that is a testament to Franklin County and Central Ohio, and the legacy of service. And this building has a lot of history, and there's a great display here that many communities don't have, honoring those that have served. That was in the original Veterans Memorial. So Franklin County is a very patriotic community. We have a VSC that works extremely hard. So talk about some of the greatest challenges facing our veteran community.
Well, I guess we can start off with about 250,000 veterans or service members transition, either retire or transition out of the military every year, back into civilian life. And Ohio is the fifth or sixth largest veteran state in the country. So a very patriotic state, lots of veterans. That transition is probably the initial challenge a lot of veterans have. That transition from, you had a pretty specific job, your meals were prepared for you, your living accommodations generally were prepared for you, and you were part of a really, really tight community with similar missions, very serious work. And then you come back and this is a great thing about our civilian life is all the freedoms you have. So we see our veterans that do have to work through that transition time. I think, though, day to day, what we're dealing with, I'd say some of the bigger issues, the first one would probably be nutrition, hunger. Not only that representing the national trends, but our expenditures on providing food has probably gone up by 50% over the last couple of years, trying to provide food cards and access to nutrition. It's very difficult right now for a lot of our veterans who are living on the margins. Mm-hmm. And the second thing I would say, and then I'll throw it to Matt, is the problem or challenge Columbus has in housing. It's hard for everybody in housing. Mm-hmm. Veterans, though, that are looking for community, sometimes it's as difficult or more difficult. There's some great subsidies out there like HUD-VASH, which is a VA program which helps help certain veterans in the poverty cycle pay part of their housing. But the landlords don't have the units anymore to offer that up,
right.
And so housing and trying to prevent homelessness is probably another big one we focus on.
And the coalitions and partnerships are extremely valuable in this community, and you all have at least a couple national models where veterans live in a supportive housing setting in partnership with the Community Shelter Board. But it's just not enough. It would be great if we had even more of those facilities that provide those wraparound services. But it's other communities would, look and say, wow, well, we only wish we had those two facilities.
Talk about Commons at Livingston. There's a great example of.
Yeah, so Commons at Livingston is out on Livingston Avenue on the east side, and it's a partnership with National Church residents, and it's really designed for the veteran community that are facing homelessness or need some type of rehousing, but they wrap around supportive services. So National Church residents will provide social workers and case managers as a part of the effort supporting those that live there, but the VA also comes in and provides those services as well. So it's a great place to help somebody get on their feet who's struggling, maybe provide some stability, and then hopefully maybe they can find a job and move out and be self-supportive. But for those that can't, it kind of gives them that extra layer of safety net that's not necessarily out there for everybody or for that age group, but they really need that. So it's a great opportunity to connect them with community resources, but also inside that VA care community.
And that community of veterans together, more times than not, really does benefit them, because it's 100 rooms, if my memory serves me, 100 apartments, and they're all veterans.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to tour that facility, and it's extremely nice. And those wraparound services and that sense of community and family is important to veterans, because that is the culture of being in the military.
Yes.
Is everybody, all hands on deck, everyone together. And then in civilian life, you can become more isolated. And you don't have that same structure that you've had in many cases, people had it for a good chunk of their formative years, their adult life, and then you're just out here in the everything's moving fast. And that leads me to, we're talking about challenges, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And many veterans suffer through no fault of their own. There's nothing wrong with them that caused it to happen, but it was the conditions of being at war, or just generally the grind and the rigor of going through military service. You come out and there's things that you need to talk to someone about.
Absolutely. There's a recent study that showed I think it was about 18% of the post 9/11 veteran experienced some level of PTS in the last year, and almost 30% in their lifetime. And it's from all kinds of things. It's from overseas and what they saw and experienced. Sometimes it's through various traumas. Sexual trauma is a big challenge that some of our veterans have to work through. Being in an environment where you have friends that or mates that suffer or struggle, or just what you saw overseas is a big challenge, and they come back here and they try to process it, and it can be very difficult to process. It certainly can't be done on their own.
Mm-hmm. Reuniting with families,
Right.
But with support. Employment can be a challenge sometimes, believe it or not. But when you make a concerted effort to hire veterans, they are just naturally some of your best employees, because they have they have the right value set. Come on time, work all week, do whatever it takes, willing to accept the title they have today and put all in there, accept a promotion if that promotion comes. All the things that make people good employees. Veterans are usually fit the mold.
I'm glad you said that, because we spend a lot of time talking about all the veteran challenges and PTS or PTSD, and and there is true. There's struggles. That was an incredibly challenging environment. On the other hand, there's tremendous resilience in veterans, tremendous experience. As a young person, you get a lot of opportunity to grow. And so we see that veterans, absolutely, they make great employees because they want to be part of something. They really do want to be part of something. And Franklin County is, as a growing county with so much opportunity, that there's a veteran population out there that I would ask employers to look toward to solve some of your hiring challenges.
Yeah, it's a different type of education.
It sure
but
is.
There's things that you don't get at a 4-year college or university that you get through military service. And if you got an individual that has both, I'm trying to hire as many folks like that as I can as Franklin County administrator. That's for sure.
Well, I think it's easier for a veteran maybe to even connect to the higher purpose of the organizations that they're joining, because they all understand that whether you go through basic training and you got that unit cohesion, you understand what your purpose is. So that skill set that comes with that veteran is they like to link into that. How am I serving the community, and how am I making my organization and my peers better? So it really is a great trait to kind of bring into any organization.
Yeah.
Let's now focus in on some of the blocking and tackling that you do to positively impact the lives of our residents that are veterans. Talk about the VA benefit request process and how you all assist in that process, and a flavor for the volume of requests that come in.
Well, trying to provide access to veterans benefits, most commonly VA benefits, is one of our 2 core competencies. The other, temporary financial assistance. So we have a lot of expertise. We do a lot of training, spend a lot of time trying to provide that access. That is truly Matt's bread and butter. So let me let Matt
So we're extremely busy when it comes to helping clients or our veterans, our family members work through the VA claims process, and it's a great challenge or opportunity for us to have. Last year in 2023, we probably did around 1,500, worked with 1,500 clients as far as needing assistance from the VA. Right now, we have about 10 fully engaged service officers. We've got a couple that are learning to pick up the process, but the volume is real, and each of our service officers are picking up somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 new clients every month that they got to provide service for. The great thing about how the VA works is we can do what's called an intent to file with someone interested in pursuing a claim with the VA, and it locks that date in for a year. So it kind of gives us some time and space to work on that claim, get it filed, and if there are benefits that come back from the VA and some type of monthly compensation, that typically will date back to when we started that intent to file or filed that. And it's very important that our veteran community understands that. So, and it's the veterans who served, but it's also the nieces and nephews or the grandchildren of veterans who maybe the grandkids are all civilians, because for 50 years we've been an all-volunteer force and not everybody serves. But they're trying to find ways to take care of older members of the family, and we help them access those aging benefits that come out for the VA, which can include sometimes it's skilled nursing facilities, sometimes it's in-home care, sometimes it's additional income to keep them housed because they want to stay in the house that they're in. So the work that, from our intake folks at the front desk all the way through our service officers, it's really about capturing their story and helping them go through the process. And the wonderful thing is there's no cost to the citizens of Franklin County or anybody that we work with. Where if you work with some of the law firms, there's a cost associated with that, but we're here to help. But for those that are looking to come to us, we're asking for just a little patience and working through that volume with a small staff.
If I can add just a couple of things that working through the VA process, we're fans of the VA, but it's not easy and it's complex and it's almost never one shot. So you might file an intent to file with us, and then we spend 3 or 4 months, or you spend time with us building that claim before we actually file the claim. Generally, you'll hear back from the VA. Right now, it's about 160, 180 days before you hear back. There's a certain percent that are approved, but it's a much larger percent that's partially approved, or it's appealed, or they want more information. And so it is a cumbersome process. And so when you look at 140 new cases a month, every month, those really do build on top of each other. And the types of benefits, though, that the VA offers, the service-connected disability benefits are benefits that, when approved, or if approved, put money in the pockets of veterans to help them live their lives, and it's a tax-free event. And there's probably about 13 to 14,000 veterans in Franklin County out of the about 60,000 veterans in Franklin County. 12, 14,000 of them are receiving some type of VA benefit. And the average is I think around $1,100 to $1,200 a month. So it really is a great benefit. It just takes time to apply. And some people have carried with them an issue from their service that's very obvious. And some people, had that knee that they injured, they got over it. Now they're my age, and that knee's hurting like crazy. But the issue originated in service. Those are the kinds of conversations we have to try to understand what benefits they might be eligible for.
Families, what types of services are available to families of active veterans or veterans that gave ultimate sacrifice in their widowed family?
Yeah, no, part of my time in service I did spend as a casualty assistance officer and an escort, and that is truly one of the toughest jobs one will have, because it's as a casualty assistance officer, you're helping that Gold Star family. The military does a real nice job of trying to wrap themselves around that family, but over time, that person's gone, their attachment to the military is gone, The military keeps doing what it's doing. So it's important, to your point, that the community still understand that those Gold Star families are out there. Much of the Ohio Revised Code that guides what we are supposed to do takes into account family members, especially parents of veterans. And we see that often where there's that veteran that was lost was the glue to that family. And so we have various things that we can do to help family members within the law, to provide services to them. I will say in most cases we see it's that community that kind of wraps around those family members.
And when it comes to the Veterans Administration and the programs that they offer to support family members, they've really introduced some great programs. Then again, it's all dependent on the situation. So we would encourage anybody, if they have questions, don't self-diagnose. Let a service officer take a look at when the veteran served and what benefits might be out there. So for an aging veteran, there's a caregiver program that they can provide resources to someone that's being a caregiver for the veteran, depending upon the situation. There's a monthly payment that comes along with that. For the widow or widower of a veteran, and if they were service connected, there might be a compensation for the rest of the widow or the widowers. Life that comes every month tax free, or depending on if they served in wartime and they're short on money, there's a program that is income based. That's a non-service connected pension or survivor's pension. So there are options that are out there that can really make the difference in the quality of life for the community. So between what we can do as the Veteran Service Commission under the Ohio Revised Code and our programs and how we join up with the VA, I think we have a good suite of solutions that are out there that can really help that person as we connect them to some of our partners.
And the only one I would add is our veteran service organizations. DAV, AMVETS, VFW, American Legion, they have so many different programs. If someone needs a lift chair, and maybe they're not eligible for our service, the DAV is they're gonna provide a lift chair. They're gonna find a way. They put in the stair lifts to help people get up and down the steps. We work through our partner upstairs office on aging when we also try to help veterans when they need they have a mobility challenge, and if they need a bathroom redone, if they need handrails in, if they need a ramp to their home, we can fund that, and we'll use our partners upstairs who has a connection to the folks that build those types of things.
Do you all have partnerships with VFW lodges and do outreach events and such to get more veterans that may be connected with their veterans lodge, but they may not be connected with the VSC?
Yeah, it's a great question. The Veteran Service Commission is an independent agency inside Franklin County, and it's the way it's structured is we have 4 commissioners that I report to that oversee the basic operation. Those 4 commissioners, by law, have to come from certain groups. They have to be a veteran. They have to belong to the organizations you just mentioned, the VFW, AMVETS. Each group has a year that one of those 5 commissioners will be appointed from. Court of Common Pleas makes those appointments. And I think the brilliance in that is that does exactly what you said. It keeps us connected to those organizations because our commissioners come from those organizations. And so, yeah, those partners are really important for us to reach out to. And those are organizations that are kind of aging in place. We don't, one of the things that it's not going to hit Matt and I as much. He's a little younger than me, but the younger veterans aren't joining those groups. And personally, I think we try to encourage people to participate and join those groups. Those groups have been around. That's why we have the GI Bill, for example, and the PACT Act probably wouldn't have come about without the influence of those organizations. But those organizations are aging out without the younger veterans joining them, and it's basically because the younger veterans are two people working families that are trying to raise kids. I always joke that when I was in school, soccer was one season a year, Now, if you're chasing your kid in soccer or football, but it's 3 seasons a year. It's just a
Travel,
busier,
a lot of travel.
just a busier time.
And outside of the different veteran service organizations, we also try to target those veterans that are, or family members that are outside of that. So we're part of African American Wellness Walk. We're part of the Pride March. We work with Office on Aging quite a bit to be at their events, public health, to be out in the community where we're going to be able to introduce ourselves to the community that's larger. They may not be involved with the VFW or the American Legion, but we still want to get out there and make them aware of what benefits are out there for
I'm
them.
glad
So
you
part of that
mentioned it
outreach
because
is important.
I haven't saw this administration of VSC walk away from an opportunity to collaborate with community organizations.
We are committed to all veterans, and Matt was helpful when he started when he came as our first outreach director. But our outreach program is everyone that raised their hand is a veteran, and they're part of the team and part of the family. And there's some great events in Central Ohio. We're going to be part of them.
What is one of the most underutilized VA benefits that you could share with listeners, and what would listeners need to do to tap into this eligible aid?
We'll try to pick different ones. Hopefully I'm not going to pick yours.
Okay.
I would start with the VA pension. We used to call it non-service connected pension, but the VA pension and this thing that layers on top of it called aid and attendance. Now, the reason I think it's so important and it's underutilized is because most veterans that are starting to age don't know about it, and they usually don't find out about it until they go into an assisted living center or nursing home, and then there's a mad rush to try to get them signed up for it. And that message doesn't get to them early enough. So I'll use my example. My dad was a Navy veteran, and we never had to use the program, but it was a great program that I had in my back pocket that he was eligible for. Now the eligibility, and I'll use round figures. You have to have a permanent disability or age 65 or older, and then you have to have limited assets. That might be, I think it's about $125,000 in assets. And then you have to have limited income. So it is a social services type program. Well, my parents, when they sold their home, they weren't eligible. They had more assets when they sold their home. And we did the math when they both went into assisted living center. Well, the money they had was going to last for maybe 3 or 4 years. But if you roll that non-service connected pension in, and they're eligible, once they become eligible, once they spend down some of that asset they have and they become eligible, that 3 to 4 years was stretched to 6 or 7 years, because then there was a time when the VA could start providing that. Now, many veterans are eligible right now by the criteria I gave you, but they're just unaware of this program. You have to be a veteran. You have to have served during a war. Didn't have to serve in the war, but it had to have wartime service. But that's one that we see Vietnam, as the Vietnam veterans start to get to that age where they may start considering, assisted living or whatnot, which is a big group. That would be the one I would touch on.
Yeah, I'll pick 1.5 options that are out there for the VA, and I think a lot of it's related around VA healthcare, because a lot of folks, when they separate from service, they go get a career, they have healthcare, or they source it from another way, they use it their family programs, but they kind of miss the opportunity to be linked in that care arena with the VA. And a lot of that has to do with not willing to be service connected or not taking the time to go through the process. Director Bramlish talked earlier, 60,000 veterans in Franklin County, 13,000 are somewhat service connected. So there's a little bit of a gap. But even if the veteran comes in and they're 0% service connected, opening that door for healthcare is extremely important. And for some, there are some copays, and depending upon where you're connected, it's covering you and potentially your family. But even to encourage the veteran to be 0 or 10% service connected to enter into those services. And in Columbus, we have a clinic, we don't have a hospital, so they push people out to Ohio State or Riverside or St. Anne, so there's a lot of good community care. but it's a way to get that earned benefit that you have as a veteran, to use those things that are out there and kind of maybe save a little money. But again, as we get older and things break, it's easier to track that if you're kind of in the VA system than trying to go back 50 years from, well, I twisted my ankle, and now I want to get a VA service connected. That's a challenge. But the healthcare experience overall for the VA, especially here in Columbus, it's very good.
I'm sorry. There is a misunderstanding, I think, out there about our medical clinic, the VA medical clinic. If you're up in Cleveland, they've got a hospital, big complex. You're in Montgomery County, big complex, and that is nice and that is great. The way that it was explained to me from the local VA here, and I've had a chance to kind of use some of the medical services. It's really the best of both worlds here, because the philosophy from the VA here was, you've got Ohio State and Riverside and all these capabilities, and so rather than try to duplicate that, they have a clinic, and in many cases they just do community care. So they outsource it. So I had shoulder surgery. The shoulder surgery, they looked at it at the VA, but they outsourced to one of the great providers here in Central Ohio for that care. And so I like the fact that you have the choice of all these great hospitals and medical clinics in Central Ohio that the VA takes advantage of.
You touched, my question was going to be, is that a regional thing that dictates who gets the large complexes versus the clinics?
So they call them VISNs, and so when you say regional, I think there's about 14 in our VISN, in our region for Chalmers VA Medical Clinic. There's, I think, 14 or so counties that participate in that. Obviously, I can't speak for the VA, but what I believe happened was the VA, to a degree, it's always a challenge to staff some of the larger hospitals. And if you're in an area like Columbus, do you build a hospital and try to staff it and compete with the Ohio States and Riversides and Nationwide Children and all those great hospitals, or do you develop a clinic and then take advantage of and provide services there? So that's kind of how I understand that there was a change in the VA's approach over the last 20, 25 years. That'd be my best answer.
Okay. When someone is seeking financial assistance, how does the process start, and how long does the process take for a person to get the assistance they need?
So there's the second core competency. We talked about access or a pathway to VA benefits. That's about half of what we do in general terms. The other one is temporary emergency financial assistance. And last year alone, we provided over $4 million in temporary financial assistance. It was our largest.
What was that number? Over $4 million.
$4 million. And I'm going to add that was beyond our budgeted amount. And Franklin County is, in my words, a generous county. And we went back to Franklin County, I think, for around $700,000 or $800,000 additional dollars in that last quarter, as we planned with your team members on how to approach this. So it's a very big part of what we do, is trying to provide that temporary financial assistance. So don't steal all the thunder. Let Matt kind of start on the process and approach. And I just want to say, there has been a challenge. We went from a lobby model for 100 years pre-COVID to an appointment-based model. And they both had pluses and minuses. Once we went virtual, and we've been back for full-time for a couple of years now, full-time in the office, seeing veterans in the office or virtually, their choice. But what we've avoided is all those turnaways we used to have. A lobby that would be full by 10 o'clock, people would have to come back the next day and it was full by 10:30. What we've avoided now is people that wouldn't bring the right paperwork, like a W-9, and they'd wait for an hour for an appointment, they'd get an appointment and they didn't have the right paperwork, they'd have to come back. And so the appointment process itself has helped us see more veterans and get more done than we've ever been able to do in the past. The challenge is changing people's ways, getting away from that lobby-based model. And quite frankly, we've had to grow our phone system, and through the help of the county, we're growing our staff and our capacity. So I want to put that out, that we are working really hard to handle the 2,000 phone calls a month, the 1,000 online submissions a month. And as Matt said, there's about 10 service officers and maybe another 4 or 5 admin folks that work all of those requests. So if you'd hit the actual...
Our recommendation, probably the best way, is to go visit our website at vets.franklincountyohio.gov. On our front landing page, there's a link to request services, to request that appointment, kind of tell us what you need. There's a link to our financial assistance request form that kind of outlines all the documents we need, kind of gives us some biographical data. And then you can either email that, you can fax it, you can call us, and we'll put you in. We have a drop box here at Memorial Hall that you can drop that off. Once we have that request, we are generally scheduling about 2 to 3 business days out. We try to call people and say, we've received your request, and review that, and then kind of say, hey, we've reviewed your documents and what you provided, but we need additional information about, maybe it's your pay stubs, maybe it's your lease, maybe it's the car payment coupon, but we try to walk through and assess their need. And then hopefully, one of our challenges, honestly, is we call, but not everybody likes to answer the phone right away. So there's a little bit of delay that you may not get immediately back to the person working your case. It may take us a couple days. But once we kind of get all that completed, and it can take somewhere, depending upon the complexity, 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks to kind of get everything that we need to make sure we can process the payments. But once we get all that, our staff has an approval level, the senior leader team of the agency has an approval level, and if not, our 5 commissioners meet every Wednesday. So from a completed application, you're going to know same day, next day, or within 7 business days of how we're going to help you. And we would say, in a good, bad news story, but about 98% of those that apply for financial assistance here get some or all, I'm probably stealing your thunder, some or all of what they asked for. And we're proud of that, but we know that really comes from a place that we have the veteran community has some financial needs, and we're kind of building that temporary bridge for them.
It's our thunder. So let's talk about the numbers. We had over 6,500 financial assistance requests last year, over 6,500. 98% plus of all of those requests got everything they asked for, or at least a portion of what they asked for, to the tune of $4 million, more than we've ever spent in the history of our agency on financial assistance. And so what are those things? Sometimes it's rent, sometimes it's past due rent. We used to see just, pre-COVID, we'd handle about a month's rent. Post-COVID, they usually don't come to us and they're 2 or 3 months behind. It's mortgage payments. Used to be mortgage payments. Now they're, the trend is they're a couple of months behind in mortgage payments. So our numbers of rent are a little bit lower than we saw in our biggest years, but the amount we're spending
per case, yes.
Yeah, it might be your rent down payment. It's car payment. It's a car repair trying to keep you going to work. I mentioned $1.6 million. I think I did in food vouchers. So $1.6 million in food vouchers. A lot of those are based on an individual month-to-month circumstance, but we do have this program where we help veterans, their widows, or their spouse that are at about 185% of the poverty level, and they've got some kind of fixed income. They're on a VA pension that's fixed, they're on Social Security Disability, which is fixed, SSI, which is fixed. 90% of them are on that program. There's almost 500 veterans that we put on a program where we provide them $300, a $300 food voucher every month, 12 months at a time. And then once a year, we'll renew the process, see if their situation changed. That's new. We haven't done things like that in the past, but we have so many veterans that are struggling, especially with food. And to us, food's always an emergency. It's always, I showed you our approach is, within the way we operate is temporary financial assistance. And that's what we focus on, temporary. Well, we think lack of food's always a temporary emergency, so that's our approach.
And you already, my question was going to be, within the financial assistance area, where is the growth occurring greatest? And it's the 4 million, 1.6 million is food.
Food.
And the food, the cost of everything at the grocery store simply, has increased for all of us, even though it's a positive sign that things are beginning to moderate in the marketplace with food.
And I'd let the public know that. I'd let the public know that we do a lot of research. We use the United States Department of Agriculture to figure out what our amounts should be and what's the appropriate approach to providing nutrition. But Ken, to your point, it is certainly in my lifetime as an adult, I haven't seen so many folks struggle with a basket that used to be full for this amount of money, and it's a half a basket now.
The work that you all are doing, it's a blessing for so many. An individual that has a cell phone, has a laptop, has an iPad or whatever device, they can go to veterans.franklincounty.ohio.gov and sign up for services and sign up with an agency that's been able to help. I repeat, 98% of the individuals got what they want.
Mm-hmm.
How many places can say they gave people 98% of what they wanted? That's taking care of your veterans right there. That's serving your veterans. And you've served more than any time in the history of Franklin County. That $4 million is the most you've spent in the history of Franklin.
On financial assistance.
Financial assistance. Yeah. Wow. That's. How do you all benchmark and look in comparison? We're the largest county in the state. We have a large number of veterans, as I stated in the beginning of this podcast. If you measured us up against another top 30 county, would we be still probably? I would guess we still would be up there near the top, or for veterans benefits provided.
Yeah, that's a great question. Now here you're going to see I'm now that I'm older, I try not to put my foot in my mouth too much. Because we love our we work with Union County, my peers there, and Delaware County, Licking County. They're all great agencies. We all do the same thing. We just operate differently. We did 6,000 round trip, taking the veteran's spouse or widow for free by taxi to and from their medical appointments. That's a specific benefit that's outlined in the Ohio Revised Code that we provide. Now, the benefits to the veteran, we've extended it to the veteran's widow and to the veteran's spouse. If you're in Union County, they do a great job. They're smaller. They have a couple of vans and they have drivers. We couldn't do that 6,000 round trip. So we do operate very differently. There is not a county in Ohio that provides anywhere near the financial assistance support that we do. Part of that might be because of our approach towards financial assistance, and I give part of that responsibility and credit to the county. Franklin County is a generous county when they're trying to help their citizens, and that I think we reflect some of that approach. The rest of it is as our 5 board members and our agency, as we look at what we do, we've said, I'll finish what I start. They raised a hand and swore an oath. And because of that, Franklin County and the citizens of Ohio, because it's a Ohio Revised Code law, decided we're going to have locals helping locals. And it's a county-based program. And that's what we do. Whether it improves, for some veterans, it saves the day. It prevents homelessness. What it does is really important. For other veterans, and this is maybe an important point we haven't gotten to yet, for other veterans, it's a stopgap. It makes time and space for us to make a referral to one of those important partners, because sometimes it's underemployment, it's a mental health barrier, it's a physical health issue, it's a We have a financial coach or a financial coach we use on staff here. But there's an underlying issue that needs to be dealt with. Well, we keep the lights on, we keep food on the table, we'll keep the heat or air conditioning going, and then we make that important referral to VA social workers, Southeast Medical Clinic, Lutheran Social Services, Catholic. I mean, you could just name these partners that we work with, and we always say the social workers, they're the heroes, because they're the ones that are working to try to either guide them to the medical or mental health professionals or the jobs coaches, or encouraging these folks to find a better place in life. Because 65% of the veterans that we are helping are in and out of the poverty cycle all the time. And you don't solve a problem because you paid their rent one time.
And I think that adds to our staff. We're not case managers, we're not social workers. So being able to refer out to our community partners is very important. And I think we forgot to mention one of the benefits of coming here and working with our staff is that veteran benefits specialist is a veteran like we're serving. So there's some commonality. You're going to sit across virtually or in the office with someone that's a veteran. And all of our support staff, admin staff, are family members of veterans if they're not veterans themselves. So that's the nice thing, is we're part of that veteran community. We just don't serve veterans. We're part of the veteran community at large. And I think it's a unique setup in Ohio that's out there, that it's really camaraderie between two veterans having a conversation about their story.
There's one benefit, one more good example of a benefit that I think Franklin County was very early in the state of Ohio to offer, and I think it's still relatively unique, our approach. And it gets back to the cooperation with the county. We have a dental program. That dental program is open up to the veteran, the widow, or the spouse, all three. If you're at 250% of the poverty level or less, we'll support you and find resources for you and pay for anything from filling to full dentures, uppers and lowers, because we know the quality of not just the ability to eat or the ability to try to get a job when you're really struggling with issues with your teeth, but the overall health and quality of life, really has a center of gravity with one's teeth.
Yeah.
And so that dental program, I think it was maybe $350,000 last year. It ebbs and flows, but it's one that we want.
I remember when we brought that online, and we talked about things such as the connection between dental health and heart health.
Right. Yes. Right.
Strong connection between the two.
Yeah. So we, that's probably a good example of a program. It's not a secret, but it's probably not out there, as much as it could be. Matt does a lot of data for us, and our average age right now, it's fluctuated since I've been here 8 years ago, from 61 to about 58 and a half. Right now, the average is
about 58 and a half.
About 58 and a half. And so while it's lowering a little bit, which is good, that means hopefully we're reaching some of the younger veterans now. It also tells you that the majority of our folks, are in that part of their life when they're starting to age and starting to need more services.
Let's talk about celebrations. We got Memorial Day right around the corner. Everyone loves a parade. Everyone loves a parade. It's the opportunity to ride in a convertible. Kids get candy. Everybody waves. It's a way to show, patriotic pride or support for a cause. Let's talk specifically about those holidays that we historically commemorate veterans, like Armed Forces Day and Veterans Day. And don't leave out the Army-Navy game. I'm going to leave that as we can talk a little bit about that, and I want to wrap up with talking about what makes the Army-Navy game as special as any other collegiate football game that occurs in the United States of America. But I want us to. That's at the end of this question.
So let's the three holidays real quickly. So Armed Forces Day is all about celebrating those that are currently serving, and it started off as kind of like the Army had their own and the Navy had their own, and at some point, the Department of Defense, they all got smart and said we probably ought to just consolidate into one one day. And this used to be, I don't remember what they called it in the Navy. Was it Fleet Week or,
It's Fleet Week,
you know, and so the idea is to kind of celebrate those folks that are currently serving, and whatever they do in service. And so we just had a big luncheon. Mill Vets, which is a veteran organization, has been putting it on for I think 30 some years now. And we brought in the Space Force as a special guest out of Wright-Patterson, who talked a little bit about what the Space Force is evolving in their mission. But so that's Armed Forces Day Luncheon. Is if you got a neighbor that's currently serving, that's got a son or a daughter that's overseas or serving anywhere, that's where you say, hey, thank your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife for their service. Memorial Day. And then you can give me a break and you can hit Veterans Day. Memorial Day, you know, sometimes people, I even said it myself one time. I was on an interview and the guy said, Happy Memorial Day. And I said, well, Happy Memorial Day to you too. And then, you know, kind of hit me that it didn't hit me what it means. It just hit me that sometimes we're a little touchy about, you know, what's the intent. Memorial Weekend is a nice celebration for everybody. And we're glad of that. But we want to remind everybody that Memorial Day is a remembrance time. It's a remembrance for any service member that served or that passed away while serving. No matter where it was, how it happened, Memorial Day is for those service members that passed away while in service. And so, you know, the appropriate things that we talk about, I think both Matt and I have somewhere that we're speaking this weekend. I think I'm at Green Lawn and you're Reynoldsburg. And our talks will be about a little bit towards maybe those Gold Star families. It'll talk about, you know, remembering the courage it took and the sacrifice that those families are still paying, whether the loved one was lost 5 years ago or 40 years ago. And then finally, that the sacrifice was not without purpose. And you started with the purpose. It's a better, freer, always trying to get better country that we live in, and it's the greatest in the world. And so that's what Memorial Day is for those that lost their life in service for their country.
So when you think about Veterans Day, veteran looks at all those who wore the uniform but no longer do. And we have a great American tradition of the militias back where communities would come together to defend the town or serve the nation at a higher calling. And then there was, you know, after World War II, we really didn't have that, you know, large standing army, which reduced because of the Cold War. It stayed up. So we want to honor all those folks that come through. And I think it's very important because when you look at the numbers across the United States, less than 1% serve in uniform today. 1% of the population, less than 1% of the population across the United States. So to take the time to recognize those that serve, that volunteer to serve, that say, you know, there's no draft, there's no compulsion, but I want to go either get a technical education or travel and see the world or respond to the higher calling. It's a great opportunity. If you think about Armed Forces Day in May, Memorial Day in May, looking forward to July 4th where we celebrate independence, and then at the end, kind of as we transition through fall, recognizing those veterans and veterans' families that allow those freedoms to continue. And as a community, I don't think we can ever forget that, you know, the luxuries and the benefits that we enjoy today, they're not free, right? They do come at a cost. It's nice to recognize.
And thank you for throwing in the fireworks, because I left out fireworks. Everybody loves fireworks.
Yeah. Let me pay forward to my brothers and sisters that are still serving. You know, with kind of this advertisement, you know, and Matt and I are in the same boat, you know, both had long careers. The military was provided for or paid for 3 different college degrees for me, opportunities for my family and I, a chance to grow in a way, like you said, not a 4-year degree growth, but just the having to go somewhere, be in charge of something, figure something out, do it under an adverse conditions, and our recruiting numbers are hurting right now as a nation. And so I try to never fail whatever speech I give on Veterans Day. You know, I try to mention that if your moms and dads, think about nodding your head north and south. If your
Yeah.
son or daughter says, "Hey, I think I want to serve," because this is what you're looking at. We don't walk on water. Matt probably a little bit more
You
than
two
me.
look good though. I think you guys should make a recruitment video and say we both had long careers in the military, and because you both look good. I'm serious.
thank
You
you.
both look good. I wouldn't have guessed long
Oh,
careers.
34 years, Matt, 33 years.
Hey, you guys wear it well.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that.
Army Navy game.
My Army Navy story, if you'll give me the moment to tell it, so my dad was Navy during the Korean War. I'm obviously Army. It's hard for me to tell this story. We always bet $5 on the game, and as Dad aged, that's when the hats came out. He didn't wear the Army hat or the Navy hat when I was young, but as you start to look back in your life, I see now that's when you start doing those things. And so we'd always bet $5 on the game, and I started to care for Mom and Dad along with my brother and sister, and I'd take Dad to all his appointments, whether it was doctor and just whatever it was. And so I couldn't get anywhere without Dad saying, "Oh, let me meet my son, the Colonel," and he always wanted to tell that story, and I would always, "Dad, we're here for your knee, we're here for your blood pressure," and I literally probably 50 or 60 times I would dilute that, downplay that, and try to get Dad back on track. So when Dad was in his final days, he hadn't spoken for I think about 2 days now, and so then the hospice nurse walked in and she said, "Oh, the Colonel's here," and so I told her that story again. I said, "He's said it all these years," and I'd always downplay it, and I said it wasn't until he's on this stage of his life where I realized it was never about me. It was about his son that he was proud of.
Yeah.
But here I am, and I said, I said to him, I said to the nurse, I said, if I could hear him say "I love you" one more time, I said I'd cheer for Navy. She hollered at me and she said, "Turn around," and he mouthed,
He said it.
"I love
Wow. Wow.
So I cheer for Navy.
That is so touching. I'm so glad you would share that with our listener. I mean, that is real. That is what life and sport and love and all of that. Director Bramlish, thank you for sharing that. I think that is a lifetime.
It is, yeah. I was very lucky. Unlike many of the folks that we help, I won the parent lottery. I had both there, and so many of our great veterans, they had a rougher time of it. And so I'm forever thankful. Bail me out here, would you?
So I think you go back to why it's important. It continues to build connective tissue between our service academies, our military community, and those that we serve. And I think all of that goes on in where they play the games and the pomp and the circumstance really just shows that, because that's the next generation coming into active service, that the community is behind them. And it is just a demonstration of how, having been all over the world, been in a lot of different countries, we are unique, not always right, not always the best, not always, getting it right
perfect.
from, we're not perfect as the United States,
Yeah.
but push comes to shove, our citizens support the military. I think that's very important.
It's like no other scene when you see all of the dressed in uniform and the entire stadium, one side Army, one. You just don't, know. That's different than wearing a sweatshirt with your alma mater. We are proud of wherever we went, but that's just something special to see. All the folks flown in, and especially during times where it seems like there's so much polarization, and even though that game means so much, they still all Americans, and they still one of the branches of the service, defending freedom at the end of the day. But on that day though, they laying some hits on each other.
laying some
On that
hits.
day, they laying some hits on
It's
each
game
other.
on.
It's game on that day,
yeah.
though. You know, we talk about Buckeyes against Wolverines, but for them that day, and I really also like the fact that it gets its proper due because there's not all the other
Right.
collegiate football going on that day, so it gives
their day, yeah.
it gives them their day. That's why I visualize the Army-Navy game being played in arguably the greatest college football stadium in the Horseshoe.
Yeah.
And before my career is done, somehow, some way, I'll come out of retirement if I could be a part of bringing the Army-Navy game to Columbus, Ohio.
We've got that step in the right direction with the new leader of the Ohio State University. With his background in the Navy and significant leadership, I would think we'd have someone with open and willing ears be excited to talk about potentially bringing, because you're right that that game is starting to travel, and it's a big investment, but to bring that here, I was on the field during so I took my dad to the Ohio State Navy game back in 2009, where we barely beat them. Where Ohio State barely beat them.
I watched it.
Yeah.
It was tight.
It was tight, man. And then my nephew got me tickets on the field for the Ohio State Army game. And I just remember literally the guys that parachuted in, I could have taken 5 steps and touched one of them from where I was standing. And there's just something about the courage and commitment and sacrifice that our services make to serve in this great country. And Ohio State gave them great due. Both games gave them great due and respect. And so I'm with you. If the Army-Navy game could ever get here, if anybody can do it, we're looking at you.
It's on my list, Director Bramlish. It's on my list. I want to be a part of making it happen. I want to give just due to this Talk of the County Memorial Day weekend podcast by simply saying to our residents that let's take every opportunity, not just this weekend, but every day, to say thanks for your service, for all the men and women that serve our country and have served our country.
Thank you.
Thank you.